and I would estimate that that box by itself weighs approximately 60 tons.
The Mysteries of Egypt Revealed. Blake Cousins, welcome back everybody right here at Third Phase of Moon. We've got Brien all the way from Peru joining us. And we're going to be going over the mysteries of Egypt. Who built them? What are their purposes? And including other mysteries of the megalithic structures that still to this day have yet to be explained. Brien, welcome to Third Phase of Moon.
Aloha Blake and fans of Third Phase of Moon.
Good to be here with you too, Brien. Now, some people are speculating the Luxor statues in Egypt, they've been found to be very much damaged compared to maybe some kind of cataclysmic event. Do you think it could have been caused by a meteorite falling out of the sky and the impact on the ground breaking these statues apart, or some kind of alien war? Also, do you know what time of date the damage occurred to the Luxor statues?
Yes, in the Luxor area, especially at Karnak and the Ramesseum and the Colossi of Memnon, which are all megalithic structures, we definitely see possible signs of plasma damage, as in plasma ejection from the sun, especially on the eastern surfaces of the stone. We see heat scorching, and this has been confirmed by our geologist Susan Moore. At least 2,000 degrees Celsius seems to have hit these ancient megalithic structures, and we believe that these events happened approximately 12,000 years ago, which is about 7,000 years older than the dynastic people that we know of.
And what we're going to see is that this giant statue once again shows very strange heat damage, mainly on the front surface, not so much on the sides, and very little on the back.
There's been discoveries made in Egypt in regards to ancient machines, highly advanced technology, and some of these tools in Karnak that have been discovered are mind-boggling. Do you think these machines, these tools, these devices were powered by electricity or something else?
It seems quite obvious. Karnak and other locations in Egypt where we have megalithic construction out of hard stone such as granite, basalt, and also quartzite, and that makes up the core of the site of Karnak, that indeed, actually we do see tool marks, we see saw marks, we see drill holes, etc. And these are a very advanced technology, in some cases more advanced than what we have in the 21st century, in some cases 500 times more efficient than what we have in the modern day. So we're talking a level of technology beyond the diamond technology that we utilize to cut ancient or to cut stone surfaces. So obviously lost ancient high technology existed in Egypt at a time long before the appearance of the dynastic people.
And in this section, we're going to see some quartzite statues. Again, quartzite is a material that would have been very difficult for dynastic sculptors to work with. And the nearest quarry of quartzite of this scale is located in Cairo, which is quite a fair distance away. Each one of these statues shows not only catastrophic heat damage, but even melting, as you can see here. Since quartzite is very high in quartz, when you apply high heat to quartzite, the material has a tendency of melting, which we saw at another location called Tanis in the Nile Delta. Once again, we see very large statues made of one piece of stone, where large sections of the statues have been obliterated. This is not likely to have been done by invading armies, but again, by ancient cataclysmic activity prior to dynastic times. Taking us back into what the ancient Egyptians call Zep Tepe, or the first time, which describes the pre-dynastic period.
There are many strange pyramids scattered throughout the world. Egypt comes to mind. Abu Rawash, you consider it one of the most bizarre pyramids in the world. Could you tell us why?
The pyramid at Abu Rawash in Egypt could be the strangest pyramid on the planet because it's hard to tell, since it's only half there, whether it was construction and then the construction suddenly stopped for some strange reason, or whether it literally exploded from the inside. We also see evidence of possible explosions inside the Great Pyramid. Abu Rawash is actually relatively close to Giza. You can see the three Great Giza pyramids from it. It's not visited very often because it requires special permission and special security to get there. But recently we've also found out that there are two tunnel systems made up of hundreds of descending stairs that go into the bedrock itself. And we're planning on visiting those locations in March of 2020 on our next tour.
This is the descending passageway into what was a pyramid. Again, look at the charring marks on the left and right hand sides. And here we are descending into the core of this ancient pyramidal structure. Once again, you see the charred marks of the stone, probably not a localized fire, but something far more extensive. And it's at other locations in Egypt, such as Karnak, that again we see these strange high heat scorching marks. Now this is the interior of the descending passageway. You can see it's a combination of limestone blocks and then also the bedrock itself.
Unprecedented footage that we're looking right here, thanks to Brien Forrester's YouTube channel. And recently you're on location within the Valley of the Kings, and the Egyptian authorities used to ban people from videotaping and taking pictures, but now we're able to see its true nature within. What did you take away from being within these massive tunnels, these passageways?
Probably the amazing thing about the shafts and tunnels in the Valley of the Kings, and in fact the Valley of the Queens, is that they are so long. They are hundreds upon hundreds of feet long, carved into the limestone bedrock. There's no way that they could have been created using hand tools of any kind because they're almost laser straight. And again, it's the sheer volume of them. It's also believed that the tunnels of the Valley of the Queens and the Valley of the Kings interconnect. So that's a giant tunnel system in the bedrock in the Luxor area. And it's quite clear that the dynastic people found this series of tunnels and utilized in a very practical way as tombs, but they didn't. There's absolutely no way that that could have been technically possible for what was, in essence, a Bronze Age culture.
And again, the great thing in recent times, places that were forbidden access to are now being opened, such as the Osiris Shaft, which I will be making a video about, and the fact that you can film and take photographs inside the Valley of the Kings in these massive chamber systems, which is excellent, because what's the point in even visiting these if you're not allowed to take photos and video? And how far does this tunnel system go? Here's my question. We weren't given access to the entire system, but some of these are much more extensive than even what I have been able to film here, what you're looking at. There you see some soot on the ceiling, probably from dynastic or later times, from people living inside, or maybe tomb robbers being in there. Beautiful bright colors. Most of these colors are the original from dynastic times. They haven't been retouched, but they're still brilliant.
Absolutely incredible, Brien. Now, let me ask you, are we just scratching the surface of Egypt? What lies beneath the sand dunes? Could there be possibilities of new discoveries like ancient alien tech or hidden treasures? What's your thoughts?
The great thing that's going on in Egypt now, as recently as the last couple of years and is ongoing, is that rather than them closing ancient sites, which are enigmatic and mysterious, they're actually opening ones up that have never been opened to the public before, and that's just fantastic. For example, on the Giza Plateau, there's a site called the Osiris Shaft, which was opened 2 years ago. It costs $2,400 to rent it for 2 hours, but it's worth it if you have a group. And It's absolutely amazing. It consists of 3 levels. First, you take a ladder down 30 to 40 feet. This is in the bedrock. And then you're in a large chamber, and then you walk forward and go down another ladder that takes you 100 feet into the bedrock. And inside that area at the bottom, there are 6 small chambers, including 2 large stone boxes weighing somewhere in the region of 40 tons apiece. They have cataclysmic damage, as if something exploded from the inside out.
And inside, mysterious, massive damage. Again, as if the interior of the box exploded. Very strange. This isn't simply tomb robbers going in and trying to extract material from the interior. There's some kind of chemical process went in here which is very weird. So again, looking up the ceiling, there are bits of splat, but not what I would call smoke or carbon material from a flame. Some other kind of strange phenomenon occurred here. And this box, supposedly the material is not granite, it's not basalt, it's not syenite, it's not diorite. It's a stone that is not found in Egypt. So weighing in at a minimum of 30 tons, where did this stone come from? How was it shaped? And how was it brought down the shaft system into this niche? Here again you can see the tool marks, very similar, almost scraping like tool marks. And then we're looking down into what will be the actual bottom level of the Osiris Shaft.
Half filled with crystal clear water, and under the surface is a giant granite box that weighs approximately 60 tons and still has its lid on top of it. And so I've been in 2 times so far, and in March of 2020 we'll go back and I will actually go in the water in order to examine the box itself. Also, another location at Abydos, recently they opened up a tunnel system which is in the bedrock once again and is at least 600 feet long. This again requires special permission and payment, but we're definitely going to be there in March of 2020 to record this amazing tunnel system. And who knows what else they'll open up in the future, whereas many countries are starting to shut down their enigmatic sites because they're getting too much interest. Egypt is opening ancient locations up for us to examine.
And there is underground water, of course, at Giza. But this water is crystal clear. So where exactly did it come from? And was it intended that this water be in there and be part of whatever process this structure originally performed? Because they call it a symbolic tomb, which is a really cheap way of saying we don't understand what this was made for, who made it, and when it was made. It's clearly megalithic, and thus it's likely at least 12,000 years old and was found by the dynastic Egyptians. They did not construct this, because this possibly could be beyond 21st century technology that was involved, which we see also at other places in ancient Egypt. The clear signs of lost ancient high technology that was present long before the time of the pharaonic people.
I want to ask you this. Recently, Bob Lazar was on the Joe Rogan show, and he stated something that surprised me. He said that the flying saucers, 9 of them, that was recovered and sent to Area 51 was from an archaeological dig. Do you think we could possibly find ancient alien civilization evidence within and underneath Egyptian soil itself?
Most experts estimate that about 15% of the megalithic works in Egypt have been opened to the public. The Great Pyramids, of course, parts of the underground tunnel systems that we've been able to explore, but that leaves 85% still to be explored. And what I'm talking about is not structures that are buried under the sand, but structures built underground, shafts and tunnel systems that may go from the Giza Plateau area all the way to Karnak. And so what we're hoping is that over the course of time, the Egyptian government will open up some of these locations, such as the Osiris Shaft I already mentioned, to the public. They will of course charge a fee for this, but this will allow us to see how massive and extensive the megalithic constructions in Egypt actually are. So it's very promising, and I'm very much looking forward to my yearly visits to Egypt. Every time we go, we get to see and explore more and more locations that we're not able to see in the past. And a very exciting place to visit is in the Nile Delta. It's called Tanis, and there are lots of megalithic works there. Some of the granite had to have been moved from Aswan, which is 1,000 miles away. And it's a location that honestly appears to have been nuked or struck by intense heat, blowing up all of the megalithic works there. And the excavations, which were begun in the 19th century, they had to dig down to the soil, which is more like moon dust because it can't port any life. It's literally like walking on the moon. The excavations there revealed all of these massive megalithic works in that location. So if you're interested in looking that up on the internet, Tanis is spelled Tanis, and it's an incredible location. We're going back there in March of 2020 as well.
And once again, another quartzite statue with very bad cracking and literal melting of the surface. When we look in detail, you can see that this quartzite has melted. You see the small blobs of the quartz crystal. And here again in detail, melting that would have taken at least 2,000 degrees centigrade. And yet again, another close-up of the melted surface of the quartzite. We speculate this event took place 12,000 years ago. And here again, another statue made of quartzite, very badly cracked and very badly burnt and melted. This fits in with Dr. Robert Schoch's theory of plasma ejection from the sun hitting certain parts of the earth approximately 12,000 years ago. So that's twice as old as the dynastic period in Egypt, which tells us that there was an advanced technological civilization in Egypt 12,000 plus years ago.
There's a site at Abydos, which is in central Egypt, and it's an ancient dynastic place, but there's a structure that was built on purpose underground there out of a combination of granite, giant granite blocks, some weighing 60 tons, and then the perimeter that it's inside is made of quartzite. So the granite comes from Aswan, which is hundreds of miles to the south, and then the quartzite comes from Cairo, which is hundreds of miles to the north, and it's been off limits to the general public more or less forever. So we were able to look down into it, and all of a sudden, because of the influence of our tour director, this man came up to me and simply said, "Let's go." And he let me go down into the Osirion for half an hour by myself.
So you're saying unprecedented access you were given to, and to a place that hasn't been revealed to the public for the first time. Tell us, Brien, what did you experience down there? What did you see?
Well, it's a very, like a lot of the megalithic sites, it looks very industrial in nature. You know, people call everything a temple. Temple of the Moon or the Temple of the Sun or the Temple of Isis or whatever, but this is clearly a pre-dynastic construction because there's no mortar used whatsoever. It's just giant blocks, incredibly tight-fitting, like what we find in Peru and Bolivia and other locations. And no one knows what its original function is, but of course Egyptologists have to give it a name, so they call it the symbol, one of the symbolic tombs of Osiris, and that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But it's perfectly bilaterally symmetrical, and as I said, it was built on purpose underground, next to the dynastic temple, which is called the Seti Temple. So I was able to film quite a bit, thankfully, in there. So that's going to be, I'm putting little clips up on my YouTube channel, but the whole thing I'm going to wait for at least another couple of weeks, as with all of the other stuff that I've been filming in this recent 8th annual trip to Egypt.
Yeah, we're able to share some clips right now at Third Phase of Moon. Special thanks to Brien Forster, and make sure you're going to subscribe to his channel to look at the full-length videos of what he captured at Abydos. But can you tell us some of these granite blocks? They weigh massive amounts, up to 50 tons, you say? How is it possible that they were able to bring these granite stone, down to these subchambers deep below the surface?
Well, that's one of the great mysteries, and the level of precision is, at least 21st century in terms of the technology that would have been required. And we know that for most of dynastic Egypt time, they had bronze tools, just like in Peru, they had bronze tools. And so that, that doesn't explain how up to 60-ton blocks were cut from a quarry at Aswan in the southernmost point of modern day Egypt and moved, hundreds of miles to the north, and then also the quartzite ones that were moved from Cairo. So, once you've spent time in these megalithic sites, you obviously see the difference between what the dynastic people could have done and what they couldn't have done. And the great thing is that Egypt is opening up more and more of these ancient locations that were off limits, and now they charge a pretty hefty fee, but when we go back next March, our whole group will have access to this same location for 2 hours.
So why do you think that Egypt is kind of loosening up some of these sites and opening it up to the public? Is it just for financial gain, or are they trying to get the information out and share the wealth of history that they actually have in their past?
Well, it's a combination of things. For a long time, there was a man called Mr. Hawass who was in charge of the Council of Supreme Antiquities, and he was very controlling. He was also, I think, financed by the Edgar Cayce Foundation, and so he limited what people could get access to. Like, we do know that there are openings in the Sphinx itself. There are at least 3 different openings there that have been revealed through older video clips. And the new head of the Supreme Council of Antiquities is simply, I think he wants to show more of the grandeur of ancient Egypt. And some of the younger Egyptologists are realizing that there is this pre-dynastic period of construction. And they can't openly say that to the public yet, but we had one of the best with us, and some of the stories he told me were just mind-boggling. So he knows for sure that there was a very long period of ancient construction, at least 13,000 years ago, and then you had the arrival of the dynastic people about 5,500 years ago, and they simply inherited the much more ancient sites, like the pyramids, the main pyramid system at Giza, and these other locations like the Osirion and the Osiris Shaft, and a lot other. There's a huge tunnel system underneath the Giza Plateau that I was given access to 7 years ago. We spent hours going underground through this tunnel system in the area of the Great Pyramid.
Wow. Absolutely incredible. So the pre-dynastic people from over 12,000 years ago, beyond that, where did this civilization end up? Where is the evidence of their tools or their history? Is it written on the walls, or is this something that the history still has yet to consider, these pre-dynastic civilizations?
Well, they're slowly starting to realize it, because so many of us have gone there and filmed these places and showed the difference between what the dynastic people could have done and what they couldn't have done. So it's leaking into the public anyway, and that's the best way for it to happen is for independent researchers to go film it and put it on YouTube and stuff like that. So it's like sand leaking out anyway. So there's no way they can control it. So also there is the financial gain, because it costs between $2,400 and $3,000 for a 2-hour visit to these places. So you have to have a big enough group to go to finance something like that. But the more eyes that see it, the more they will more or less have to open up the other places that have been off limits in the past.
So let me get this right, Brien. So these pre-dynastic civilizations that built these megalithic structures, their technology matches, if not goes beyond modern day technology. Could you tell us how the hell did they get this information and technology over 12,000 years ago to build these megastructures? Where's the evidence of these other megastructures so that they had some prototypes? Where are the prototypes, and how did they get this information and dive straight into these incredible megastructures out of nowhere?
Well, that again is the mystery, but the evidence is the fact that they exist, and the fact that they're made out of hard stone, so they've lasted, several thousand years older than the dynastic time period. People keep asking where are the tools. Well, they either took the tools with them, or the tools have been found and they're being hidden underneath the Cairo Museum. Those are the two plausible answers. But we've also found evidence of catastrophic events having occurred about 13,000 years ago, including heat scorching in locations like Karnak, and a lesser known site in the Nile Delta to the north called Tanis, where you see that the surface of the stone has been scorched by flashes of high heat, and that's been backed up by our geologist who always comes with us. So that's the reason why you always, or almost always, see cataclysmic damage at this site. And it's the same in Peru. Like, none of these structures are perfectly intact. They show signs of massive cataclysmic events occurring in those locations. And if it was heat, for example, like solar plasma from the sun, which is Robert Schoch's theory, that would have vaporized any life form in the area, and could have even melted any metallic tools that were there, so they would be unrecognizable.
So in Egypt, you have this catastrophic event, but then in the continent of America, we have the Ice Age. So there's different contrasts of heat. You have the Ice Age on one side of the planet, and then this catastrophic plasmic wave from the sun possibly destroying the civilizations that built these megalithic structures. Is this the reason why we're not seeing any kind of massive pyramids in the American continent?
Yeah, well, basically, Canada and the United States were buried in 1 to 2 miles of ice up until the end of the last ice age. And the end of the last ice age was very rapid. People think that it was a slow melting of the glacier, but there's more and more evidence that it was incredibly fast. That caused the world's oceans to rise by 350 to 400 feet in a very short time period. We're talking maybe less than a year. And that could have also destabilized the planet itself. At the most ancient sites in Egypt, we see that their alignment is off by 23.5 degrees from north, south, east, and west. So that could be that at the end of the last ice age, you had actually the axis of the planet shift. And that's why these sites are suddenly off. And the dynastic sites are almost perfectly aligned north, south, east, and west.
You were telling us a little earlier in the interview that you were getting knowledge from this tour guide or some officials in Egypt that would blow you away. Can you tell us a little bit of insight? What did he tell you?
Well, we were given access to something that has never been open to the public. I just remembered. That's the step pyramid at Saqqara. And the step pyramid of Saqqara, academics say, is the oldest pyramid. It was the first experiment at building a pyramid. So they built a step pyramid, and then after that, they think that the Great Pyramid, the Second Pyramid, and the Third Pyramid were constructed. But that's not actually the case. The step pyramid is the first pyramid that the dynastic people built, but they used as a model the Great Pyramid because it already existed. And so I didn't know, but I was told about a year ago by Nassim Haramein that he had he was given access to the inside of the step pyramid, and that there's a giant shaft that goes straight down in the middle. So we paid for that last month, and we got to go inside. There's a causeway that goes down into it, and it's several hundred feet that you walk through to get to the central core, and then you look down, and there's a massive shaft that goes down hundreds of feet, with a giant box in the center made of huge blocks of granite. And I was told by the guide that we had that it actually goes several stories underground, and that will be opened up over the course of time. So it's that gives more proof that there's a giant system of tunnels underneath, especially the Giza Plateau area, that it's a bunch of tunnels that interconnect with one another. And they've even admitted, the Egyptologists admitted that there's one tunnel that goes at least 1.5 miles. And that's an official story.
It seems impossible of the technology and the elaborate tunnel system beneath the pyramids themselves. It makes no sense to me why they would do this unless there was some kind of correlation between all the pyramids and a design behind it. Some people actually claim, and the history books claim, that the pyramids are nothing but tombs for pharaohs, but the history also reveals that there's been no pharaohs found within these ancient pyramids. Well, what do you think the ancient pyramids were designed for?
Well, the thing is that thousands of bodies were buried in the area of the Giza Plateau, but those were chambers and shafts that already existed. So the dynastic people simply used these rooms and chambers and tunnels and shafts as tombs because they were already there. They didn't construct them. There's no evidence, of course, that the Great Pyramid was ever used as a tomb. Actually, none of them. I think there are probably about 8 super ancient pyramids, and then you have the dynastic pyramids, which are much more inferior in terms of construction. And it appears that the ancient pyramids were resonant devices of some kind, not necessarily electricity producing, but energetic in nature, using the energy of the earth itself to enhance and focus that energy, and then project the energy out to the obelisks, which are also pre-dynastic, because the obelisk, the largest, was never completed at 1,200 tons. They are pre-dynastic because they're made of one piece of granite, again from Aswan, and the unfinished one is still in the quarry at Aswan. There's no way that could have been done during dynastic times. So we also have, again, evidence of ancient cataclysms that suddenly stopped activity. So you have this giant unfinished obelisk. You have the site of Tanis in the Nile Delta that looks like a huge explosion occurred there and just blew everything up. And then you have the dynastic people taking those giant pieces of stone and building other buildings with them in the same relative location. But also Tanis is a hill, and there are, I think, 6 plants that grow there. That's it. The whole area, like the Nile Delta, is incredibly fertile in terms of growing food. Then you have this basically bald hill that has 6 spiky plants growing on it. And when you walk around on the surface, it's like walking on the moon. There is no soil. It's more or less like dust that has no nutrient value in it anymore. Again, that would have been the result of being hit by a giant blast of heat.
It'd be hard to imagine where we'd be today if this cataclysmic event didn't happen and these pre-dynastic civilizations continued to build these megalithic structures. What would it look like on Earth today if this major catastrophe didn't happen? Any theories on that?
Oh, well, we would be incredibly advanced. We would easily be going to the stars by now. If you had 13,000 years of increased industrialization, increased advances in science and things like that. So But this, it's also believed by some that these cataclysms happen every 13,000 years. So we're actually getting relatively close to that time period. I don't think it'll happen in our lifetimes. It might, but that's why it's important to cherish every day that we do live.
100%, Brien. And recently, there's been people looking at the Atlas Comet recently that's kind of come into nearby to planet Earth. What do you make of these celestial objects that do kind of threaten Earth in possible ways? The technology we have now, maybe we could divert some of these cataclysmic events.
Well, we have, yeah, there are many celestial objects come very close to hitting us. It's not that infrequent. And about 1.5 years ago, they discovered in Greenland that there's an asteroid that hit the Earth probably about 13,000 years ago. And it's 1 mile in diameter. It's made of nickel iron. And its force of strike would have been, they calculate something like 50 million times the power of the Hiroshima bomb. So that could have been one of the things that destabilized the planet, caused it to wobble and then recenter itself, because that could explain why our planet's at 23.5 degrees and not straight up and down. So that's a recent discovery. And that's, we're getting more and more information, more and more science is coming out showing that the series of events happened over the course of probably about 1,000 years. It wasn't like a one-day event, but it was a series of things that happened, destabilized the planet, wiped out all of the megafauna in North America. That's why you find all of those woolly mammoths in Siberia flash frozen with food still in their stomachs. Again, I think that tells us that the planet suddenly was turned in position from vertical to 23 degrees, causing that flash freezing, then the rising of the sea level, the burying of any civilization that would have been close to the seashore at that time, as in Atlantis. Atlantis didn't sink, but the water level rose very, very quickly and caused massive destruction and causing any survivors to escape as fast as possible to find a new homeland.
Thanks so much, Brien. Appreciate it. Now, if you want to take a look at Brien Forrester's channel, the link is below in the description. Make sure you subscribe to Brien's channel. He goes on the adventures of a lifetime, and you're more than welcome to join him. He offers incredible tours to explore the unexplained. Now, if you've captured something unexplainable in the skies, submit your video to us right here at Third Phase of Moon. My email is in the description. Upload your video to YouTube and copy paste it to my email. Everybody, keep your eyes on the skies. We're not alone. We'll see you again next time. Thanks again, Brien, for joining us.